G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Trewin. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome everyone. Today I'm interviewing Susan Toft from The Laundry Lady, based in beautiful Sunshine Coast here in Australia. Thanks for your time today, Susan.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Really looking forward to talking about your business. I think it's very interesting. Let's start with how we know each other. Ashley from Boost Media got in touch. They've sent us quite a few great guests over the years. So thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Yeah, well, The Laundry Lady is an online laundry service. So we connect busy people and businesses with a door-to-door laundry service at the click of a button. And we deliver our services all over Australia and now into New Zealand. And the way we do that is quite unique in that we have a team of independent contractors. So we have over 300 laundry ladies and lads, and they all work from their own home. So they will go out and pick up the laundry, take it home, wash or iron it, and then bring it back to the customer the next day. And our customers are lots of different places, from busy businesses, small business, beauty salons, medical clinics, busy families, people living with an NDI with a disability through the NDIS, and lots more. So we're really the online marketplace that connects the contractors to the customers and helps people get on top of their laundry, which we all hate.
Yeah, what a brilliant idea. I remember Mum used to do laundry for some people in the small country town I grew up in country Victoria. It's really interesting. So you're a platform, and so maybe explain to the audience the business model. How do do you take a percentage of, or do you charge a monthly fee for the contractors to be on the platform?
Yeah, so we are really passionate about having something that's really low cost for our contractors to come and join. There are franchise models which are super expensive. You spend $60,000 to be part of, and our startup cost is just $499, which gives them supplies and things like that to get started with as well. So we take a platform fee off the services, and then the contractors receive the rest of that and have a really sustainable income. The real benefit of our business model to something like Uber is that we have very recurring business. Obviously, laundry never goes away. It's very recurring and continual, which means that for our contractors, they've got this really sustainable income, and they can be earning anywhere between $300 and $3,000 every week, depending on their target and what they want to be working. So it's a really sustainable business model for them to be part of.
Wow, $300 to $3,000 a week. I think I better dust off my iron.
Absolutely. I know you can definitely earn a fair bit if you want to. And some people will just start with us thinking they're just going to do a few hundred a week, just as a extra little resource in addition to whatever else they're doing. And then they realize how great it is. And so then they, jump in and build it even bigger, and then recruit their husband or their son or daughter or whoever to help them. And then it becomes this, really big business for them. So it's really great that we can provide that.
That's really intriguing. And how do you go with churn? Like, do you have a problem with contractors maybe going direct to the customers after a while?
We don't, because we really handle the payments, and it's quite complex payments for our services, because we handle a lot of the NDIS customers, which is a really complicated space to get paid within, and lots of different payment options for businesses and things like that. And so because majority of our customers, 80% of our customers are recurring, they're really booking that recurring model right from the beginning. And so once they're in our platform, they don't tend to leave that. So we're really quite lucky within our business model that doesn't happen, compared to what some of the other gig economy style businesses out there happens.
Yeah. And for the international audience, NDIS is National Disability Insurance Scheme, run by the federal government. It's copying a bit of flack over the last few years because it's, the budget's been massively blown, but I think it's a great scheme. So it's a fair part of your business then.
Yeah, about 15% of our customer base is NDIS. And we're really, proud to be able to support people who physically or mentally can't do their laundry because, it's a basic right. We all need to have our laundry done. But it is really complicated in terms of the payment side of it. The government make it super complex, and you think it's, easy that it can be and great that it can be reimbursed under this scheme for getting laundry services done. But to do that is so complicated. So we've really built a platform that can handle that and automate it so that we can scale with that.
Do you guys cover Hobart down here in Tasmania?
We do, yes. We have Hobart and Launceston covered
Right.
with our
Yeah.
services.
I've got someone in mind that I think would absolutely love. She loves cleaning, and I'm going to call her after this interview and put her onto your website.
Get her on there. Yes, absolutely.
And do you know your numbers like LTV and CAC, lifetime value and customer acquisition cost, and that
Sure
ratio?
do.
Yeah, great.
Do you want
Yeah,
me to tell you what they are?
yeah, please. Yeah.
Yes, so our customer acquisition is really low, actually. It's just $15 per new customer.
Wow.
And our customer lifetime value, because of laundry, because they have it so regularly, they're spending around $3,000 per year, and we estimate our average customer staying with us for 10 years. So for $15, they're worth 30 grand. So it's really valuable to get them into that recurring model so that because they are worth such a lot over the long term.
Holy shit, that is a great ratio. What is that, 200 to 1?
I don't even know, but it's good.
$15. Yeah, $15 to 3 grand. I think I've had enough coffee. Um, yeah, you shouldn't get that ratio below 3 to 1, 3 to 1 because you're getting too close to break even. But you also then shouldn't really be going over 5 to 1 because it means you're leaving money on the table. You should be pumping a lot more into your marketing.
Yeah, and so for us, that's been probably the biggest challenge in growing our business because, we have a low cut, I guess, in terms of the gross profit margin that we keep from, because we want our contractors to be paid fairly as well. And so from that, we invest as much as we possibly can into marketing, which hasn't been enough as we're scaling and scaling really fast. So we are seeking investment at the moment so that we can absolutely just put fuel on that and grow that much faster because we have a really great digital strategy, which really we get the contractor, we get them customers, and then we repeat. So with investment, we've actually been 100% bootstrapped up until now. So with investment, we're really, feeling like we're going to grow much faster.
And just to be clear, that 3,000 lifetime value, is that the gross sales or that's what you net as a business? Like,
That is the gross sales. So what we net as a business is about 20% of that.
okay, so 20, so that's $600. That's still, that ratio is still way out of whack. Yeah, you got plenty of room to pump money into the marketing. That's
Exactly. Yes.
amazing.
Yeah. So we're very excited about what 2025 is going to look like because, we'll have investment and can really, pump that much faster.
We'll talk about investment in a minute under the funding question. I've got a couple of ideas around that, but I better get back to the actual questions. How did you start out?
Well, I was working in a corporate career. I had worked for in international marketing jobs for most of my 20s into my 30s. And then when I became a new mum, I was really struggling with trying to balance being my career that I'd had built and being a mum and being there and being at home and having any kind of flexibility. I was working for Austrade. I flew internationally all of the time. Like it was quite tough. And actually, I got made redundant, and it was sort of the icing on the cake because it pushed me into doing something new. And at the time, it was kind of just after the global financial crisis. So there wasn't a lot of marketing budgets around. So I could have started a marketing agency, which was what my skill set was, but I decided I just wanted to do something completely different. And I was literally walking past my spare room and looking at my pile of clothes and thinking, I really need a laundry service. And then started thinking about how I could build a business out of that. And so that was back in 2012. And so I became the original laundry lady. And my first son was just 3 years old. And I had never done any kind of service business like that, but I absolutely loved it because I could be there with my kids and I could take him to school and pick him up and have him with me on my deliveries, all of those sorts of things. And I always started it with a vision that I would scale and bring that opportunity to other people because I knew there were lots of mums and women that I knew who were going through that same struggle. But at that point in time, I didn't really know how I was going to do any of that. You don't know what you don't know in business. And so I was really stuck those first few years, I guess, working in the business and as the laundry lady, which at the time felt frustrating, but now in hindsight, those years were super valuable because I learnt firsthand what customers wanted, how our scheduling could work, how the pricing worked, all of those things, which now forms our knowledge base, which our contractors use for their training and helps, guide us in terms of how we make decisions as a business. So it had value in the end.
And so back in 2012, how old were you when you decided to start the business?
Oh, how old was I? I was in my early 30s, so I'm 45 now. So I'd never really owned my own business, but I'd always had this vision that I would one day. And, the roles that I was in before I came into the business was very much about helping other people in business. And so flipping to the other side is always very different and, learning all of that yourself. But I guess being growing the way that I did, starting as the original laundry lady meant, I didn't have to know all the things about scaling and investment and growth and all of those things at the beginning. I could just kind of learn as I went. Now it's a very different picture. Now I'm looking at all of those things, and I think if I'd known that knowledge back then, what would the business be like now? But you gotta get there in your own time.
I've seen you a podcast I did 4 years ago, episode 63 with Brian Clayton. He's basically created an app, which is the Uber for lawn mowing in the US. And they've grown really fast. I've heard him on a couple of podcasts since I interviewed him, but I think they were doing 20 million US top line way back then.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I only really started to scale the business in 2020. So after COVID, I came back to the business full time. I had actually parked the business for a few years as got divorced and, went all the things from life. And then after COVID, had the opportunity to come back to the business full time. And that was when I really started to scale. And so in the last 4 years, we have grown from just 8 contractors to now over 300. And we've grown from 200,000 in revenue to 6 million in annual recurring revenue, is what we reached in the 24 financial year. And this year we're on track to reach 10 to 12 million. So
Wow. Oh,
yeah, we've been almost doubling or more than
yeah,
doubling every year.
that's incredible. Well done, Susan.
Thank you.
Well, that's part of the next question. Do you have some key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of the business? So you've covered the top line, and that's 6 million. Is that gross or that's your 20%?
That's our gross volume, yeah. So we keep around 20% of that. So that has been like our revenue's basically grown 30 times in those 4 years, and that has been completely bootstrapped. So we've just grown organically from our own profits and just reinvested every cent we could back into marketing and into our tech platform. So in fact, we didn't have a technology platform for a very, very long time. We used an off-the-shelf platform for the first few years of this last bit of growth and quickly outgrew that and needed to build our own. But building technology is super expensive. It takes a lot of time. And so it was really difficult to do that, but we finally have and created our own platform, Time Boss, which we just launched last year, and that's going to really help our future scale. So instead of growing by 20 to 30 contractors a month, we're planning to start growing by about 100 a month. So it'll be really much faster growth.
Yeah, very smart to bring that in-house. What number of full-time equivalent team members would you have now?
Yeah, in our head office, we have 7 full-time equivalent, and that operationally, we're getting much smaller in our head office in terms of as we grow because one, because of the platform, that things like managing the way we pay our contractors used to take us 3 full days every single week because we were doing it quite manually. And now we've got that built into our tech platform, which means we can do it with a click of a button. And so there's been a lot of savings in the last 12 months within our team. We launched into New Zealand, which we fully support from Australia. And next year, or in the next 12 months, we'll be looking at going into the US and Canada and supporting as much of that from Australia as we can as well. And certainly, as some AI tools come in, like particularly around our customer support and operations, we're starting to implement some of those, which is really helping us save time as well, which means we can work more on growing the business rather than just operating the business.
You have to put on their funny accent when you deal with a New Zealand customer service.
Well, everything is so much online. We don't
Yeah.
really talk on the phone very much. And I built the business that way from the beginning because I was a mum with kids in the background. So I always wanted to make it very online in the way that we communicate. So yeah, but we do have to, talk about our jandals and things like that.
Yeah. Just don't bring up Pavlova, Russell Crowe, or Crowd. They can keep Russell, we'll keep Crowded House. And are you using much or any AI in your customer service?
Yeah, we've started to use chatbots into our customer service, and we are building some AI technology into our platform. One of the really most complex things for a business like ours that any kind of two-sided marketplace comes across is managing your capacity and your locations, and with how many contractors you've got, how many customers you've got, and we have a really dedicated marketing plan around how we target that. And so that information is something that we're building a lot more AI data around because it can be quite complex as we scale to make sure that we can do that in a really efficient way.
I'll send you a cast that went live a few weeks ago. Lauren in Launceston here in Tasmania. She's got a great business, Airbnb management company, 170 properties, 11 FTE from memory, 1.6 million top line. But she just raved about their AI. They've trained it, it's called Max, and it handles 80% of the communications with the Airbnb guests on chat and email. It doesn't do voice yet, but it's phenomenal, she said. So I'm not sure if that's the path you guys are looking.
Yeah, I think, it's really exciting how for customer service, how that's going to really, help change our business and just make things so much more efficient. Even just the way we communicate with contractors, and being able to really be there 24/7 is what
Yeah.
that's going to give us opportunity to do. So yeah, it's exciting space.
Absolutely, yeah. AI doesn't take holidays, doesn't get sick, doesn't have a shitty attitude.
Oh, I feel like it might get an attitude over time. I think that's
Yeah.
yet to come.
And a great client of mine on the Gold Coast, actually, they've got they're looking at actually training their AI at the moment, and with an Australian accent to book appointments for their consultations. So yeah, I'm really
Yeah, amazing.
interested in
Yeah.
testing that out when that's live. Yeah. When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
Oh, I still feel like there's a long way to go to that, but there's lots of success along the way that you've got to celebrate as well. And for me, because I started with this real goal for myself in terms of being able to be there for my kids and being able to bring this opportunity to other women or people who wanted that flexible business. What's really felt like success for me is along the way when I've had contractors, our laundry ladies and lads, contact us and say, this has done so much for me. Like I've got this business now. I wasn't working before, or I was working, but I had no work-life balance, or all of those sorts of things. And this business has really given them such an opportunity to just be earning really great income and have that flexibility to work from home, whether it's looking after their kids or their elderly parents or whatever that is. And so every time I hear a story like that from one of our contractors, like that's success to me, and that's what keeps me motivated and keeps me going. One of our contractors in Adelaide, I just did a video with, and she was telling me how she was a director for a child care centre, and she decided to just do this as a little bit of extra income, and she was getting sick all the time in childcare, and she just hated her childcare, and so now she's doing this full time, and now she's like recruited her daughter to join her, and so those sorts of stories I think are just that's what success is for me within this business.
Yeah. So that answers the next question, what success looks like to you. Yeah.
Yeah, and also I think for me personally, it's time with my kids, which sometimes it's time away from my kids, depending on what mood they're in the day. But that was it. I'm a single mum, and I've got two boys, a teen and a tween, and they they need me, and so success for me is having time with them and being able to balance that. Not that balance is probably the right word, but having time, being able to spend time with them is really important to me.
Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
Oh, look, I think understanding, I mean, particularly for our business, it's definitely been understanding ads, AdWords, Google ads, Facebook ads, all of that digital marketing is really important, but also just having a really solid brand. My background was working in brand in international marketing. And so it was something that I was really passionate about from the beginning, and all of our branding is pink and I wear pink and, I live and breathe our brand all of the time, and right through to my own personal brand is really important in helping to build the business. And so I think in any kind of marketing, you just really got to think through your brand and connecting that to your values and all of those sorts of things before you really, push it hard.
Now, on funding, you mentioned you're bootstrapped all the way and you're looking at investment. We'll talk about that in a sec. But obviously, working at Austrade, you know about the EMDG Expert Market Development Grant, which frustratingly you can't use on New Zealand, as you'd know, because I think they deem New Zealand as a suburb of Sydney anyway. But is that something you're looking at tapping when you go to the US and Canada?
I literally have just been spending my whole morning looking at my EMDG application. So absolutely we will be doing that. And part of actually going to New Zealand first was a strategic part of that, because if you are already exporting, you can apply for a higher tier of EMDG. And so that was one of the reasons why we wanted to go there first. But plus also it's a good practice ground going to New Zealand, because it is nice and close and easy and very familiar. But we have really accessed grants all the way. Coming from government, I just knew, from the very beginning, that's how we did it. And so, actually, in 2016, that was when I first got an off-the-shelf platform and had an online booking system. And before that, it was just a website and my phone number. But even at that stage, I got a $5,000 grant, and I went off to my designer and said, I want to create this Uber style platform. And he laughed at me and said, 5 grand will get you a website that we can integrate into an off-the-shelf system, and that's it. And so that's what we did. And that really helped us. That got us a really long way. It actually helped us scale all the way to 6 million. So accessing grants and any of the government handouts, I think are really, really important when you're in that startup stage, because now going for investment, it's really difficult, and some business molds fit that really easily and some don't. And so, getting traction, I think is important before, as part of that. And so, yeah, using those grants to help you grow has been a big strategy for us.
Yeah, absolutely. The EMDG for the Australian audience is really good. And a guest reminded me a couple of years ago, she was accessing, I think, the full $150,000 a year, which I think they've just removed. There's now the 40,000 or 80,000 tier. But she was spending all that money pumping into Facebook ads. She obviously had to match it. So she was spending 300 grand a year on Facebook ads when I think she was selling a digital product like a course internationally, but it was particularly targeted at the US. So it can be used for service export as well as physical products.
Yeah, and for going to trade shows and things like that, which is great for building that presence in market. So, yeah, we'll be excited to hopefully get that grant and be able to, use it to help us launch into US and Canada.
And now talk to me about investment. Are you thinking of crowdfunding or private investors, angel investors?
Oh, investing is so much fun. So we really started out in a path of looking for VC funding, which is venture capital funding. But what I've really learned in that process is that you have to be a very specific mold of business for VC funding. Mostly B2B SaaS is what they're looking for. And even if you're sort of on the outskirts of that, that's, that they can only fund a very small amount of businesses. So understanding that is, I think, really critical. We've definitely had a lot of interest in angel investment. In fact, we're very, very close to closing our first round. And that we'll have lots of angel investors who it's a lot more work going in and pitching and approaching angel investors, but they're looking more at you and if they really believe in the business and what you're doing, which is great. We've also gone into every pitch comp we could to just really get our message out there and get exposure at everything we could. We will look at crowdsource funding as potentially a second or third round, and I think once you start on the investment circuit, it's probably something that you're just continually doing because you've got to go back and get the next round and all of that. And I wasn't ready to do that for a really long time. I didn't feel confident that I knew what the path was within that. And so I really started that journey by going on Shark Tank Australia. My very first pitch to investors was on national TV, which is not probably the smartest thing to start with, but it brought an amazing exposure to the business and really, helped kick off the investment journey this year. So yeah, so it'll be exciting when we close that first round and can start to see, just the impact of actually having an influx of money and what that's going to achieve. As I said, we've got really low customer acquisition costs and high LTV, and so being able to actually put fuel into that marketing spend, I think, is really going to see us grow.
Yeah, I wrote an ebook called Marketing Funding Flywheel, which I'll put in the show notes for the audience, which explains the LTV and CAC ratio, etc., plus a whole lot of other things, 41 pages. But on Shark Tank, so you didn't land any of the sharks.
We actually got the biggest ever investment offer in Australian Shark Tank history, which was really exciting. But and look, I can't say because of confidentiality what happened with all of that, but I can say that this is our very first investment round that we're going for now, and with Shark Tank, I think we've just really focused on the amazing exposure that comes out of that. It's just marketing gold being able to say as seen on Shark Tank.
Mm.
And we will continue to use that for as long as we possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. And on Angels, was it Brisbane Angels that you've
We're Angel Loop. So we started with Sunshine Coast Angel Loop and went to all of their different locations, Brisbane and Byron Bay and Gympie and Harvey Bay. So it was actually quite funny because we started in Sunshine Coast, which is my current hometown, and finished in Harvey Bay, which is my childhood hometown. And we're still talking to a few more, particularly in the female space, which it is really hard to find female investors, and that's something I feel quite strongly about, that we do want female investors in our first cap table, because we're a very female focused business, and so I think that's really important to have that balance.
I've got two female investors that I know would be very interested. If we can have a chat after we
Send them our way.
absolutely. So you haven't spoken to Brisbane Angels?
We have, yes.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
we
right.
probably will pitch there too, although at this stage we're thinking we'll probably be oversubscribed,
Yeah.
but
Well, that's
we're getting close.
that's great. So I had Liz Rard on. Have you met Liz?
No.
She's been with Brisbane Angels for about 13 years now. I had her husband Matt on episode 453 a bit over a year ago, and then Liz's episode went live a couple of weeks after that, 457. So Matt spoke about their e-business institute business, which they teach people how to buy content websites in hobby niches, etc., and renovate them. And then Liz came on specifically to talk about Brisbane Angels or angel investment. I'll shoot you through that podcast as well and give you an intro to Liz. Met Matt a few times, haven't yet met Liz, but yeah, a wonderful couple. And I do think crowdfunding, I think you'd be prime for crowdfunding. Um, the Renee Bunster from Bunster's Hot Sauce, do you know them?
No.
I've had Renee on the podcast 4 years ago now. Similar journey. So she just made hot sauce at home for friends, got really popular, and she's now in Coles and Woolworths, etc. She did a crowd fund. Firstly, she did a private raise, so got some angels to put some money in, and one of the angels said, "Have you considered doing a crowd fund?" And she hadn't. So off they went, did it. It was very successful. We've had quite a few guests on. I'll shoot you through those episodes. We've had people on that have done a crowd fund. I think your brand and your business model is so good. I think it would go well.
Yeah, and look, one of the really awesome advantages of going on Shark Tank was just how much it really pushed our applications from contractors. So to give you an idea, in a normal week we would get around 100 leads, and after Shark Tank we started getting 500 leads in a week, and that's still continuing. You know, a year later we're getting people turn up to interviews saying, "I saw you on Shark Tank," and so, you know, I think crowdsource funding would really help with that as well, with our recruitment side of things. So it's definitely something we're considering for at some time in the future.
Yeah, it's great marketing. I've got a folder of over 200 investment memorandums from crowd funds. I'll shoot that through to you as well with a summary sheet in there. We did a crowdfund at New Zealand Whisky Collection end of 2018, raised nearly $800,000 New Zealand. And then March 2023, a board I was sitting on in Western Australia, a gin and vodka distillery. We did your mate's breweries near you in the Sunshine Coast. They'd just done a 2.5 million raise the month before in February. And James, the founder of Old Young's Distillery, said, I want to be the biggest beverage raise. So he went for 2.7 million was the maximum he was going for. And we raised that in 19 hours.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I think it has definitely been a bit tighter around the CSF this year, but I think, you know, that's probably going to turn a little bit in 2025. So, you know, we'll see.
Yep, absolutely. If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Yeah, look, that's such an interesting question. I get asked this all the time, like, what would you do differently? You know, all of those things. And I think if I had funding, and if I also knew the pathways, then it would have been such a different picture. Like 12 years ago, there wasn't huge, there was support for startups, but there wasn't huge, you know, incubator programs and all of those types of things. Whereas today, there's like so many of those types of programs that can really help you in getting the contacts and getting started in your startup. And if I had access to those sorts of things back then, I think it would have been such a different journey. And I potentially wouldn't have even gone into the, you know, being the original laundry lady myself. I would have just gone straight into doing the tech and all of those things. But I think one of the real, you know, things in benefits in hindsight is that not building the tech till much later meant that when we did do it, we built it a whole lot cheaper and much more, you know, tailored for exactly what we needed, because we already were solving a problem and knew that the business model worked before we created the technology. And I think a lot of businesses start with the technology before they know it's actually going to be able to solve anything. And I think that's so complicated when you know, that's such a waste of money often for a lot of startups I see, and where a lot of the failure comes in. So yeah, I don't know. I struggle with that question as to whether I would how I would do it differently. But yeah, plenty of funding. I think you just burn through it much faster. I think when you're bootstrapping, you have no choice but to account every single cent and be very careful with how you're building that.
Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from
The most stressful point, all of them.
it?
Look, I think I find the most stressful thing is managing cash flow. And we last year we were named in the AFR top fastest growing startups in Australia list, and I went along to an event and talked to all the other top 100 fast growing startups, and every single one of them said the same two things that were a struggle, which was cash flow and managing and finding staff. And so I think understanding that from the beginning and knowing how to do that better is probably one of the best things you can do for your business. I think kids should be learning accounting at school instead of I don't know what some crap my son's learning he's like, oh, the teacher told me I'm going to learn this, use this every day. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. You're never going to use that. But accounting and those sorts of things, we don't learn enough of that at school or uni. And then, you know, unless you're in commerce, and that is the most important thing and also the most stressful thing in business. So getting on top of that and understanding that is critical, no matter, you know, if numbers are your thing or not. You've still got to understand that, I think.
What area in business you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
One of the things I've had to work on the most to add the greatest value, probably, you know, as I just said, you know, working on those numbers and understanding that is definitely really important. I think now at this point in the business, it's learning to be a leader. It was a really different place when we were 0 to 5 head office staff to 5 to 10 office staff, and being a leader and understanding how to manage your staff to get the best out of them, to make sure they're connected to your values, but also that you're all on this journey together, I think is as something that you've got to be working on all the time to really, bring value within your team. I have an amazing team now. I feel like I have not been in the office. I've been on this investment raise and it's like a tour all over Australia. And so I haven't been in the office. I haven't been working on operations. They're just doing all of that. But it took a lot of work to get to that point, to be able to have a team that can do that operate well without me.
What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
Cash flow.
Yeah, thought you'd say that.
Look, I think, having no money to grow some of the things that we wanted to do has been really, really tough. Like we have great traction, we have great fast growth, but also it's been frustrating, like trying to get the money together to build that tech platform was like this just dark tunnel for a long time. And we knew we could get to the other side and we could be so much more operationally efficient. And now, we know if we get investment, we can invest in our marketing and grow so much faster, but it's like watching paint dry when you're sitting there without those things to be even when your revenue is growing. And I think like one of the things I find is really valuable in that is just really taking a step back. So we enter a lot of awards programs, which is great because you look at your application again in 12 months time, and it doesn't feel like you've moved much when you're looking at it in the day to day, but when you look at it again 12 months later and you go, oh, holy shit, we actually have done a lot of things. And I think that's where, it is good to kind of step back and look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you should have come on the cast a couple of years ago, because in the last 2 years, I've helped 5 businesses raise over $4 million, most of that from investors, but some of that's government grants and loans. But yeah, it's I really enjoy it. It's a fun process. Obviously, making sure you get the right people, no arseholes on the cap table.
Yeah, that's definitely been a learning through this journey. But like I think you've got to be ready for it as well. And I don't know that I was ready for it. I had my own fear of the unknown probably was the biggest thing holding me back from going down the investment path. I knew that it would be all consuming and I just didn't think that I was ready for that. And now going through it, I don't think I would have been ready for it, but now I am, and I am actually really enjoying it. And you're talking about your business all the time, and there's a lot of feedback and you got to be ready for that. But also I think you've got to take that on the chin and use that to go, right, well, if that's what they're seeing, I'm going to improve my pitch to this so that they can see the opposite of that. So yeah.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
I just love that I'm building something, I think, and what the end goal is going to look like. I mean, we've got all these forecasts and amazing, revenue forecasts that we expect we're going to get to, but just the fact that I'm building something that is bigger than me, I think is what I love the most about it. And my kids don't seem to really care too much about what I do right now. They tell me I'm really shit at laundry, which is really nice. I'm like, well, that laundry, pays your bills.
Yeah.
But I hope that also it's giving them an education that they don't get in schools, even though they don't seem to care too much and they don't take much notice. I think they probably are, and they probably are absorbing a lot of what is going on. And so I love that they're connected to that, because they wouldn't be if I was just in a job in an office and not at home doing a podcast and they're playing Fortnite in the background.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
The biggest mind shift, I think, at the moment is really just bringing, the business is at a much bigger stage now, and we're at a different revenue level. We've got different staffing. It's really, building my mind into that next stage, that we're not just this small business anymore and we're a bigger business. One of the big things we've really tried to change our narrative around in the last 12 months is that we're a technology business rather than a service business. And a lot of that comes down to looking for investment, because that's the place where that fits. And it is just where our business is shifting to as well. And so that's been, a big mindset shift for me because I'm not a tech founder and I've had to learn, all of the things around that and same with learning all of the investment jargon, which there is a lot, and there's a lot of investors who expect you to understand everything they're saying. And so, shifting around all of those things. I think at every stage, it's just there's always new challenges and new things you've got to learn, and it's just, looking at that at each step.
The number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Looking at your accounting and finances regularly. I'm not going to talk about habits outside of because I think I'm probably the worst for some of those things. Some are really great at having, lots of different mindful things. I don't know if that's my key skill, but definitely just understanding those numbers and looking at it regularly. You can't ignore any of those things. And I think if you're naturally not inclined to know about financials and numbers, it's easy to ignore that and look at the other parts of the business that you are good at. But if you don't know that, then you're not going to get there.
It's fundamental, especially with such fast growth that you guys are undergoing. You've got to have a handle on your numbers.
Yeah, and getting advice around that if you don't know, but still, even when you get advice, you've got to understand what they're saying and make the decisions around that. The buck stops with you at the end of the day. And so if you don't have, some understanding of that, I think it can be really critical.
Do you find it difficult to define and execute a clear strategy for your small business? Does your team support your strategy? You know you are ready to create the right environment to boost your team's performance. Our 90-day business transformation program is designed for small business owners like you, with 5 to 30 team members who are ready for growth. Every day you'll receive a short email with a handful of growth actions. You'll invest 30 minutes each week in your one-on-one coaching session, tackling your specific growth challenges with one of our experienced growth guides, business owners themselves. Boost your confidence, your team's performance, and grow your small business with ease with our business transformation program at growsmallbusiness.com. Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
Well, we're recruiting all of the time because we're bringing new contractors into our team all of the time. And on that side of it, it's really been about making sure our values are very embedded into how we recruit and how we talk about ourselves. A lot of our contractors join us because they really resonate with my story and how I started. And, they're not joining because they love laundry. They're joining because they want to have that same flexibility. And so that's been really important with recruiting those contractors into the team. And that's also critical in our head office is just making sure that those values are understood and not just understood, but just lived by every team member as they come on. And as we're getting bigger, I don't have as much one-on-one contact with people now in the team. And so if those values aren't right at the beginning and ingrained in everyone, then it won't come through for the next people who come through as well. So I think that's the most critical in terms of, making sure that as your team grows, it's growing in that way that you want it to.
What are some of the things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
I think, again, really just being true to what your values are. We really sat down and set our values very early on, and it's really about creating time and flexibility, both for our contractors and for our customers, and just making sure that is within everything that you do. And it's easy to say, oh, we do that in our recruitment, we have it within this, but then you've got to revisit it and go, are we actually living it? And I think, and if we're not, well, what are the things we can change to make sure that we are? And that's, I think that's the things that are really important as you're getting bigger to, reassess. And I have to go to, leadership things and events and listen to podcasts and read and all of those sorts of things to just really think about that all of the time and bring it back and think, is this where we're actually at?
I had a great guest on from Canada. I'll send you her episode. She's written an excellent book around culture. She's got about 50 FTE. She said doing over 10 million US dollars, well over that. They organize sporting events in communities for over 100,000 people in North America. And yeah, love her book and the approach that they have to when they a new team member starts on their first day. It's incredible what they do for them. So I'll shoot you through that.
Yeah, and I think, we work in such an online environment, so we never actually meet most of our contractors, and you never have that face-to-face, contact. And so building that culture into that online environment is something that, I'm constantly looking for ideas and looking at the big businesses that are, like Canva and places like that that also have a very online culture as to what the things that they're doing and how we can bring that in. And yeah, I think that that's essential in your business growth.
Yeah, well, Christie's Business Jam Group in Canada and US. I think now most of their team is remote as well because they've done 11 acquisitions, so they've grown quite quickly. But she's got some tips in her book on how to keep the culture nice and healthy when you've got a remote team.
Yeah.
Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Haha. Well, I have this presentation that I give where I say balance is bullshit. Like you're never going to have a perfectly balanced work and life. And I think balance is really the wrong word for what we're trying to achieve. And for me, I think it's just been about integrating work into life as much as possible. So, when I used to work in a corporate career, I would finish at a set time. I wouldn't pick up anything until the next day at a certain time. I wouldn't work weekends. It was very on and off, and you didn't have, all the extra stresses that come with running your own business and all of those things. But now I work all of the time. Like I don't feel like there's ever a time I'm not working, but I also have my kids around me all of the time. So, and look, I think just not caring about the fact that they might be swearing on Fortnite in the background of me eating, it's like, well, that's my life, and that's how I bring balance to my working life, and making them part of the business as much as possible, all of those sorts of things.
How much professional development have you invested in yourself?
Professional development. So, look, I think I go to a lot of events. I feel like I've just been on a constant event circuit these last few months, and I really thrive in that because it's not just the information that you're getting in the content; it's the networks that you're building through that, and that's where I feel, I get so much more development and motivation as well within all of those things. I listen to lots of podcasts. I don't really have brain power to listen to books. I tend to read the first few chapters and then I don't read anymore. But podcasts I do enjoy, and I also just really also like to just switch off sometimes and keep my mind silent. And I think that also helps my professional development because you got to have that downtime. And so, yeah, sometimes it's just not listening to anything or watching something really crap on TV because that will bring my brain out. And that's when I start to have ideas and think about things because my brain has had that time to go down.
Yeah, I'm the same. I love a good B-graded rom-com. It just turns my
I like
brain
I
on.
like a trashy reality TV
All right.
show.
Yep. Love Island.
Selling Sunset. No, I like the real estate.
Ah, yes. Yeah, yeah. I've seen that. Have you had mentors or coaches along the way?
Yeah, so many. And I think this is really important. And, if you're just starting out in business, there are plenty of free things that you can access. And I accessed all the free things. There's, always mentoring programs or accelerator programs or government funded things that you can be part of. And I've accessed as many as I could, particularly in the last 4 years, not so much in the beginning when I was doing the laundry lady, but I was but I that was a different time in the business. But in the last 4 years, I've accessed a lot of those, and I think it's about finding the right one for the right time. So in the beginning, those free services or group ones might be really great for you, but as you go along, you might need a bit more one-on-one. I've got a really great person working with me at the moment, a coach, investor advisor, all of those sorts of things. Who's been helping me with the investment process because I really didn't know where to start. Didn't know the language of some of the things. It's, some of the comments and things like that I don't know how to respond to. So he's been really great at helping me within that space. But, it's finding the right person is the key within that.
I've just thought of a third female founder, and funnily enough, two are based in the Gold Coast and one is in Brisbane, so they're all local to you.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I read that may have seen the headline. Serena Williams has her investment fund because she thought it was a typo when she read somewhere that only 2% of investments go to female-led businesses.
Yeah, this is, really scary, and I think it's a really endemic problem, right? There's not many investors who are female. That I think as females as well, we probably just think about things differently and we present ourselves differently, and that doesn't fit that, specific mold of how to raise investment. And there is definitely some attitudes. Like I've definitely copped all of those things in as part of this raise and learning all of that. But it also just motivates me to go harder. And it also has given me all these new goals of when I can pay it back, I'm going to pay it back. I am excited about down the track being able to have my own fund and decide which, female-led businesses I can give it out to. The statistics also show that female-led businesses are much better run
Yeah, they're more
and
profitable.
more profitable.
Even management. I read an article about a UK survey that showed that businesses that had more female representation, not just the board but also management, was something like 7% more profitable.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, our contractor team is 90% women, and we're really proud to bring more men into that team as well. And our head office team is 80% women. So that's been a key part of our business model from the beginning, and it's important because of all of our values and things like that.
Do you have a board of directors or advisors?
Not yet. So it's always just been me on the cap table, and it's been very much run by me. And we were just talking about this the other day. We were trying to put in a profile set up our cake profile, and it wouldn't accept that I was the only person on the cap table because apparently it's not very common to grow a business to, we're almost at 9 million in revenue now without anyone on your cap table and having no board or advisors or those sorts of things. But that is all about to change. So with investment, we will absolutely have a board of directors. We will have an ESOP plan for our staff. We will have advisors and all of those things. So I'm actually really excited for that because I have done things so much on my own up until this point. And, I think growing a business from 0 to 6 million is going to be very different from growing it to 6 to 100 million. And so having those advisors and things will be really exciting.
Yeah, I'll send you. I wrote two LinkedIn articles a couple of years ago on how to build a board, and the other one's about the chairperson role. Yeah, I think that's really smart. So, Cake Equity, oh, sorry, yeah, Cake for the audience is an app that helps put in an ESOP, employee share ownership plan. It's great to hear that you're doing that. You probably haven't because you don't like books, but have you read or heard of the book The Great Game of Business?
No, I haven't read it.
I'll send that to you.
I've probably read the first chapter because that's what I do. I read
Yeah.
the first chapter and I'm like, this is the best book ever. And then I never read anymore.
I think you might get hooked on it. It's a great book written in the early 90s. Jack Stack's the author, and they put in an ESOP, but there's heaps of other great initiatives they did, different management styles. The bonus system's brilliant, I think, and just their growth story. I only heard about that from a guest on the cast a couple of years ago. It's now my top 10 favorite books.
Yeah, awesome. The best book I have actually finished lately was Shoe Dog, which
Oh,
was the
me too.
story of Nike
I just
from
finished
Phil.
that. That is such a
Did
great book.
you? It
It's
was
such a
so good. Like it's an old book, but it was probably one of the best ones I've read. And just, all the story is about how he managed his cash flow through, when it was small to when it got bigger, all of those things. So people don't talk about that stuff
yeah.
because they're embarrassed to talk about it, but it's absolutely what happens in business. And so it was really great to read, that real story of his journey. And yeah, then watch the Netflix version of Matt Damon and Ben Affleck with it. I don't know if you've seen that one too.
No, I haven't yet. It's on my list though, for sure. Yeah. I know it was
I
13
don't know if
hours.
it's quite as true to the book, but
Yeah.
anyway.
I mean, it's over 13 hours long, that audio book, Shoe Dog, but I just couldn't put it down and pull my earbuds down, I should say. So yeah, it's great. Now, you haven't exited yet, but I assume because of the investor discussions that is a topic that comes up. Have you read any of John Warrillow's books or listened to his podcast, Built to Sell Radio?
No, no.
I think you'd enjoy them. You probably just listened to the podcast, but he has guests on. We've had John on twice. He has guests on, obviously, people that have exited their business and the lessons you learn about things, not just on the exit process of, legal things they've fucked up, but just the journeys and the multiples. Sometimes you hear what, multiple of sales, which would be relevant for you. I think she got such a predictable revenue or a multiple of EBITDA if it's a more traditional business, but I'll shoot those through to you. And one of the two times we had John on, and it's in one of his books, The Automated Customer, which is very relevant for you. He talks of a lady in the US built a business up over, I think it was 20, 25 years. It's a payroll service for nannies. So it was a great little niche. She got it to $9 million top line and sold it for 6 times sales, so $54 million, because she went after a strategic acquirer, which was care.com. So it's a website with 7 million parents on it. People want to book some to mow their lawns, babysit, or, get a nanny. And so they could just plug that straight into their main business and get their money back very quickly.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, it's really something that, as part of the investment journey, you have to really think about what that exit is because you do get asked it all the time. And, you need to understand what that might look like, which is something I've had to really, think through and learn about because I hadn't really ever thought about that in the early days of the business.
Yeah. All right, Susan, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Oh, look, the hardest thing I think, when you do get to those days where you're like almost running out of money and you're thinking, why did I do this? Why didn't I just go and get a real job where I could have a, nice, easy income, could get a credit card, all of those things. You can't do anything like that when you're in a business because you're, trying to reinvest everything back into the business. And so, it can be really hard to be thinking about, your financial future when there's nothing to show for it. So I think that is definitely one of the hardest things, particularly in those really early years. And and again, knowing your numbers and understanding that is all really important, but you're still probably going to have no money. So you have to accept that.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
There's lots that I love, but that one from Shoe Dog really stands out just because it was just so true to what the business journey is all about. I mean, look, I read all the Branson books back in the early days as well, and they were great. I think it's just finding the right one for the right time. Sometimes it's actually a book that's nothing to do with business that helps more. So I think you just got to, be as widely read as you can is really useful.
Yeah, absolutely. I was the same before we hit record. I do over 12 hours a week of professional development, so listening to audiobooks and podcasts on 1.5 or 2 speed. So I get through a shitload.
Yeah.
Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
I like to just listen to a real variation of podcasts, I think. I like to have, people who I really love the journey of the story rather than, getting into the nuts and bolts of things because I think that's where the true value is in the fact that it's not an easy journey. It never is. And that can be really motivating in business to just know that other people have done it tough too, and they've come up against challenges and hard times. And so that's what I love is just hearing people's story. So I listen to all different types of things, and I'm very unloyal to any particular one. I listen to all different ones.
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
One tool, I think probably again, just understand, like that accounting system. So you can see that the finances. I like to be able to see everything on my phone. That is probably my tool because I am on the move all of the time. I have my kids with me, especially in school holidays. We'll be, going out and doing things. My son will be like, get off your emails, mum, get off your phone, because I'm telling them to do that all of the time. But as I say to him, I'm like, you would be in after school care if this was a different thing, if I couldn't look at my phone while I'm, dropping in here and there. And so and then he's like, oh, okay. So, I think being able to just have everything in that one spot and do it from anywhere is what I really love.
Final, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out 13 years ago?
Oh, just keep going. Just keep going because you wonder, is it all worth it? You'll definitely have days like that, or should I have done something else? And look, maybe for some people that is the answer. Maybe you should go and do something else. But for me, it was just keep going because eventually you start to see rewards and start to reach goals and all of those sorts of things. So yeah, just keep going. Like what's the Dory, just keep swimming.
Just keep swimming. My daughter's actually the lead in that play this year, Finding Nemo. No, yeah, Finding Nemo, I think it is. And yeah, so she's singing that a fair bit in the car at the moment. Just keep swimming. Just keep
Just keep
swimming.
swimming.
Thanks so much for your time today, Susan. Really enjoyed our chat.
Thank
Congratulations to
you.
you and the team on the growth, starting back in 2012, pretty much the Uber for laundry, and from starting on your own to now 7 full-time equivalents in the main team and at 300 contractors, and doing 6 million top line, growing that to 9 or 10 this in the next 12 months while you're doing raising investment. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.